What is psychosexual theory? Psychosexual theory, or stages of development. Freud's psychosexual theory states the 5 stages of human development. First, we have the oral stage, anal stage, phallic stage, latency stage, and the genital stage. These are psychosexual stages capture the main growth points of persons from infancy to adulthood and focus on different facets of wants, needs, and desires.
The oral stage. During the oral stage, the infant primary source of interaction occurs through the mouth, so the rooting and sucking reflex is especially important. The mouth is vital for eating, and the infant derives pleasure from oral stimulation through gratifying activities such as tasting and sucking. Because the infant is entirely dependent upon caretakers, or the one who is responsible for feeding the child also develops a sense of trust and comfort through this oral stimulation. The primary conflict at this stage is the weaning process. The child must become less dependent upon caretakers. If fixation occurs at this stage, Freud believed that individual would have issues with dependency or aggression. Oral fixation can result in problems with drinking, eating, smoking, or nail biting. The anal stage. During the anal stage, Freud believed that the primary focus of the libido was on controlling bladder and bowel movements. The major conflict at this stage is toilet training. The child has to learn to control their bodily needs. Developing this control leads to a sense of accomplishment and independence. According to Freud, success at this stage is dependent upon the way in which parents approach toilet training. Parents who utilize praise and rewards for using the toilet at the appropriate time encourage positive outcomes and help children feel capable and productive. Freud believed that the positive experiences during the toilet training stage serve as the basis for people to become competent, productive, and creative adults. However, not all parents provide the support and encouragement that children need during this stage. Some parents punish, ridicule, and shame a child for accidents. According to Freud, inappropriate parental responses can result in negative outcome. If parents take an approach that is too lenient, Freud suggested that an anal expulsive personality could develop in which the individual has a messy, wasteful, and destructive personality. If parents are too strict to begin toilet training too early, Freud believed that an anal retentive personality develops in which the individual is strictly orderly, rigid, and obsessive.
Phallic stage. Freud suggested that during the phallic stage, the primary focus of the libido is on the genitals. At this age, children also begin to discover the differences between males and females. Freud also believed that boys begin to view their fathers as a rival for the mother's affection. The Oedipus complex describes these feelings of wanting to possess the mother and the desire to replace the father. However, the child also fears that he will be punished by the father for these feelings, a fear Freud termed castration anxiety. The term Electra complex has been used to describe a similar set of feelings experienced by young girls. Freud, however, believed that girls instead experience penis envy. Eventually, the child begins to identify with the same-sex parent as a means of vicariously possessing the other parent. For girls, however, Freud believed that penis envy was never fully resolved and that all women remain somewhat fixated on this stage. Psychologists such as Karen Horney disputed this theory, calling it both inaccurate and demeaning to women. Instead, Horney proposed that men experience feelings of inferiority because they cannot give birth to children, a concept she referred to as womb envy. Latent stage. During this stage, the superego continues to develop while the id's energies are suppressed. Children develop social skills, values, and relationships with peers and adults outside of the family. The development of the ego and superego contributes to this period of calm. The stage begins around the time that children enter school and become more concerned with peer relationships, hobbies, and other interests. The latent period is a time of exploration in which the sexual energy is repressed or dormant. This energy is still present, but it is sublimated into other areas such as intellectual pursuits and social interactions. This stage is important in the development of social and communication skills and self-confidence. As with the other psychosexual stages, Freud believed that it was possible for children to become fixated or stuck in this stage phase. Fixation at this stage can result in immaturity and inability to form fulfilling relationships as an adult. Genital stage. The onset of puberty causes the libido to become active once again. During the final stage of psychosexual development, the individual develops a strong sexual interest in the opposite sex. This stage begins during puberty but lasts throughout the rest of a person's life, where in earlier stages the focus was solely on individual needs. Interest in the welfare of others grows during this stage. The goal of this stage is to establish a balance between the various life areas. If the other stages have been completed successfully, the individual should now be a well-balanced, warm, and caring. Unlike many of the earlier stages of development, Freud believed that the ego and superego were fully formed and functioning. At this point, younger children are ruled by the id, which demands immediate satisfaction of the most basic needs and wants. Teens in the genital stage of development are able to balance their most basic urges against the needs to conform to the demands of reality and social norms.
What is psychosocial theory by Erik Erikson? Unlike Freud's theory, the psychosexual stages, however, Erikson's theory described the impact of social experience across the whole lifespan. Erikson was interested in how social interaction and relationship played a role in the development and growth of human beings. Erikson's theory was based on what is known as the epigenetic principle. This principle suggests that people grow in a sequence that occurs over time in the context of a large community. Each stages in Erikson theories builds on the preceding stages and paves the way for following periods of development. The 8 stages of psychosocial development by Erik Erikson. First, infancy develops trust versus mistrust. Second, early childhood develops autonomy versus shame and doubt. Third, preschool develops initiative versus guilt. Fourth, school age develop industry versus inferiority. Followed by adolescence, develop identity versus role confusion. Next must be young adult, develop intimacy versus isolation. Then, middle adulthood, develop generativity versus stagnation. And lastly, maturity or older adult, develop ego identity and despair.
What is trust versus mistrust in infancy? The mistrust is the first stage in Erikson's theory or psychosocial development. The stages begins in a birth or lasts through 1 year of birth of a children. Infants learn to trust that their caregivers will meet their basic needs. If the needs are not consistently met, The mistrust, suspicion, and anxiety may develop into a mistrust. How do trust and mistrust develop during infancy? Infant learns to depend on their caregivers and in turn learns that the world is safe and will take care of their needs. The following are examples of what builds mistrust between an infant and caregiver. Say for instance, when an infant cries out their caregiver isn't available to meet their needs, trust versus mistrust is an Ericksonian development stage where infants learn whether the world is safe and reliable. Trust develops when caregivers consistently meet the child's needs, while mistrust develops when needs are inconsistently or inadequately met.
The toddler stage. Erickson's second stage of psychosocial development occurs during the first 1 to 3 years of life. Erickson assumes that a psychosocial crisis occurs at each stage of development. Erickson believes psychological needs of an individual conflict with the needs of society. Erickson believes a toddler must form a sense of autonomy and they grow physically and begin to become more mobile. Erickson believes that all toddlers must assert a sense of independence and autonomy. This is achieved when toddlers walk away from their caregivers, picking out what toys they play with, and choosing what they want to wear and eat. Erickson believes it is critical to allow children to explore the limits of their abilities within an encouraging environment. Instead of putting on a child's clothes, a parent should be supportive, have patience, and allow the child to try to do things such as dress themselves. This allows children to learn how to ask for help when they need it.
Preschooler initiative versus guilt.
Erickson's third stage of psychosocial development occurs during preschool, between the ages of 3 to 6 years. At this point in our psychosocial development, when conflict occurs between initiative and guilt, we learn to assert ourselves and typically begin to direct play and social interactions. To our parents, our behavior may seem vigorous, overly assertive, or even aggressive, and yet we are exploring our interpersonal skills. If overly restricted from such exploration, either by parental control or through increased criticism, we can develop a sense of guilt. Similarly, while constant questioning in this stage can be tearing at times, if it is curtailed by caregivers, we may see ourselves as inhibiting our interaction with others. And yet, if we are successful in stage 3, we learn to feel capable, secure, and able to use our initiatives. If we fail, we may suffer guilt and self-doubt and become less likely to lead. Success in this stage is vital to building the virtue of purpose, as opposed to feeling of guilt. However, a balance between initiative and guilt remains key to developing a healthy mindset.
School ager, industry versus inferiority.
Erickson's fourth stage of psychosocial development typically occurs between the ages of 6 to 12 years old, and it involves the industry versus inferiority. When a child successfully navigates this stage, they develop competency. Competency becomes a big part of confidence as we develop in life and play a strong role in the next stage of identity. A big part of this stage focuses on academics, competitions, and social interactions. Children at this stage seek recognitions from both adults and peers that they are capable and competent. The fourth stage is also where learning differences and other organic issues may become more pronounced. Children who have learning differences may struggle more in experiencing competency. They also experience more negative interaction with teachers or caregivers. Instead of an environment promoting competency. Too often, the classroom may promote feelings of inferiority.
Adolescence identity versus confusion.
Identity versus role confusion is the fifth stage of erection theory of psychosexual development. It occurs during adolescence when individual transition from childhood to adulthood and is characterized by developing a sense of self. The key challenging during this stage, identity. Adolescents must explore their interests, values, and goals to form their own unique identity. This process involves questioning their beliefs and values, refining them based on life experience, creating a strong sense of self. Role confusion. Adolescents must experience role confusion if they are restricted and not given the space to explore or find the process too overwhelming or distressing. This could mean being unsure about one place in the world values and future direction. The core question during this stage is who am I and who do I want to be? Adolescents must work through the complexities finding their own identity, including questioning regarding their experience, vocational choices, and career inspirations, education relationship, quality political and social views, personality and interest.
Young adult intimacy versus isolation.
Intimacy versus isolation is the sixth stage of erection theory of psychosexual development. It occurs during young adulthood, roughly between the age of 18 and 40. During this stage, individuals are concerned with developing intimate, loving relationship with others while maintaining a strong sense of self. The key challenging during this stage, intimacy, young adults must learn how to form close, meaningful relationships with others. This involves sharing oneself with others, being open and honest, and developing trust. Isolation. Young adults may experience isolation if they are unable to form close relationships with others. The core question during this stage is, can I love and be loved? Young adults must learn how to balance their own needs and the desire with those or their partners while maintaining a strong sense of self. They must also learn how to communicate effectively, resolve conflicts, and form healthy, long-lasting relationships.
Generativity versus stagnation. Generativity refers to making a positive impact and contributing to the world, such as through raising children, mentoring others, or engaging in meaningful work. Stagnation, on the other hand, represents feeling stuck and unproductive, lacking a sense of purpose. Example, making a lasting impact through philanthropy or volunteering. However, those who struggle with generativity may feel a sense of stagnation, as if they are no longer growing or making a progress in their lives. They may feel unfulfilled and lack of sense of purpose direction. Ego identity versus despair is the 8th stage of Erickson's psychosocial stage of development, during which the aging individual strives to accept the value of her life experience. According to Erickson, the last psychosocial stage is integrity versus despair. This stage includes a retrospective accounting of one's life to death, how much one embraces life as having been lived, as opposed to regretting missed opportunities. Example, a person who has been unsuccessful in their career may feel a deep sense of guilt or inadequacy as they or reflect on their life. If they cannot accept their shortcomings and find positive points, they may remain in despair.